Hi guys, MrRoflWaffles here. At PlayStation Experience 2015, Treyarch gave a talk on AI. This is the full video. Enjoy.
We've already got them.
What's up? What's going on, PlayStation Experience? How you guys doing? Woo! I'm Scalo with Activision, and I'm extremely excited to be here to present with these extremely talented developers and break down the world of AI for you. Now, one of the best parts of my job is to, whenever I have an opportunity just like this, to kind of pick these guys' brains and learn about the technologies and features and content that we as gamers just simply pick up and play and don't even really think that much about consciously because it's so well implemented and designed, and how they think about it so much differently and so extensively. So we're going to try to do a bit of that here today on the topic of AI. Now we have 4 developers, each from different roles and disciplines at the studio to offer their unique perspective. So first up, we have Gary Stalmack.
Hi.
Sumit Chakatar, Yannick Lobel, and then Craig Houston.
Hello.
So before we get started, I thought it'd be awesome if you guys could provide a little personal history at the studio, what you guys have done there, and more specifically, the work you did on Black Ops 3. Gary, you want to kick us off?
Sure. My name's Gary, and I was actually brought into Treyarch for Black Ops 3, so I feel really great about that. I actually came in as our first dedicated AI designer. In the past, we've had the level designers will feed to Sumit and his team what they want from the AI. They make it happen and feed it back to them. Now we've got somebody who stands in between and kind of interprets and helps build a little bit more cohesive whole for the AI.
My name is Sumit. I've been working with Treyarch for a little while, for about 8 years. Done about generic programming and eventually got into AI, and just one of the proud and honored engineers to work on Black Ops 3. Thanks for playing, by the way. And that's it. Like, I work with these guys and have a good time.
Yeah.
I'm Yannick Lobel. I joined Treyarch about 9 years ago. First started on James Bond, Quantum of Solace, and was a member of the cinematic team for in-game cinematic for Black Ops 1 and 2, and now I'm the lead AI animator for Black Ops 3.
And I'm Craig Houston. I've been with Treyarch for nearly 9 years as well. I started writing for them on Call of Duty World at War, and I've written for all their games since, and I was lead writer on Black Ops 3.
Awesome. Well, clearly there's a lot of combined wisdom here, a lot of experience to dive into this very complex topic. Now, AI is a term that we hear a lot, get tossed around. Probably a fair number of people have a basic understanding of what it is and its role in games. But for everyone else, what is AI as it pertains to games, if not something that's going to eventually take over the world and mark the end of humanity?
Well, I like to think of AI as it's the characters and the monsters, et cetera, that people interact with in the game. When we look at it from the technical side, we kind of break it down into 2 different areas. You've got AI behaviors, which is when the AI decides, I'm going to go from point A to point B and do something there. And then you've got the logic behind it. And usually when you hear engineers talking about artificial intelligence, that's the part they're talking about, is that decision-making process that decides, all right, I'm ready to go do behavior A at this location now.
And within the context of Call of Duty, how has it kind of evolved with the evolution of the series, but also hardware and technology and your own systems?
Would it be fair to say a lot? I mean, it's something we were talking about the other day that, when I first started in games, it was the 80s, and, the decision-making process for characters in games then was like move left or right or shoot or attack. And in some ways, that was still very much true of the early Call of Duty games because they were not quite corridor-based, but the behaviors of the characters you would encounter was a relatively small set of things. They were moving through dimensions, and because we were in solo games then, when the player would approach, they would only need to think between a couple of different options. Should I duck? Should I shoot? Should I run away? But what we've done over the years is just expand that, and in this particular case, completely redo it.
Yeah, I mean, like the advances in technology, and also, in our case, the extra year of development helped us really create a lot of contents for the fans. And that is something that, we have a rich amount of, AIs in the game. So
it's something, we spent some time in previous games adding on to the existing systems. It's like I remember on Black Ops 1 we had the Spetsnaz, and they had some unique behaviors that other soldiers did, but when we came to this game, particularly dealing with the future and dealing with robots and huge, robotic vehicles and stuff like that, it needed to be a kind of fresh start, which was harder work for these guys than it was for me, because I mostly just write dialogue.
I mean, in terms of animation, I mean, if we compare what we have on Black Ops 3 to what we had on Black Ops 2, we have probably around 3 times the amount of animations for AI that we've created for Black Ops 3. And that's because of, our new AI system that we built from the ground up. And it really helped us, again, have a huge cast of AIs, and it's...
Well, yeah, to your point about the breadth of the cast, I mean, you have human characters, you have robots, you have zombies, you have, quite a variety, as you can see here.
Yeah.
It's pretty incredible. And each one of those is unique, right?
Oh, yeah. In the past, we had our generic soldier, and the generic soldier took animations from pretty much the same pool of animations, but for this game, each enemy that you encounter have their own animation sets, and this is a lot of content that we had to create for this game, and it's all for the fans, really. We want to make sure that the game is fun. So we create this really rich environment. And
well, and from a systems level, what kind of challenges does this introduce? I mean, to your point earlier, for anyone who has yet to play, it's a 4-player co-op experience for a campaign that has become renowned for big cinematic moments that are like an action movie of sorts. But now it's with 4 other playable characters in the environment. What did that create?
I think that was the fundamental thing that really motivated so much of the change that we've done here. Because like I was saying before, when it used to be a guy going down a corridor and enemies would be scripted in particular places to do certain things. Once you open up the environments for 4-player, and we also, with the scale of this game and the amount of different weapon types you could have and things, we really needed the enemy to actually be more like true AI and not just be hand-scripted to be here. Because when you play the game, especially when you're playing it in co-op, it's really unpredictable. It's been a fun thing for us to watch people's different play styles and seeing people going into different, some guy will be, I'm going to be a sniper and I'm going to wait up here. And so for that to work, the AI needs to function in a way where you kind of just put them in and they have to populate that environment and move through it in a way that's appropriate to engage with the players, regardless of how they tackle it.
Yeah, I think that's one of the key things, is you've got, going to 4 players, you've got a lot more possibilities of how the players are arranged when they come across enemies. So in the past, the AI has been really simple for Call of Duty. Yeah. It's been, I'm going to shoot, I'm going to pop out from behind cover, I'm going to be able to move, but we've had to allow it to react to a number of different situations now, and that's caused that logic engine behind it to kind of expand a lot. So we've gone from an AI that was very heavily controlled by the level scripters to one that has its own thinking power. And we need to make that look good, but at its core, like Craig was saying, Call of Duty is this huge cinematic experience in the campaign. And in order to do that, there are times when you need that fine level of control. So I think that was one of Samit's big challenges, was I'm feeding him all this stuff that we want the AI to be able to do independently on its own, and he still needs to be able to allow the level scripters to go in and specifically say, okay, I need you to go over here and hit that door, and when that door opens, this big wow moment happens for the player, and that's kind of a tricky balancing act to play.
Well, and it has to account for variety of playstyles, right? Like, I'm, the crazy person who just runs out and doesn't play very strategically at all. I like to,
you will die.
Yeah, I just, I like to go Rambo. But, I think, in this context with this, 4-player experience, you have to have people who are possibly playing super aggressively, others playing more conservatively, and accounting for all of that across a pretty massive scale, right?
I think that's one of the fun things that gives it something that's cinematic in a different way. It's like Gary was saying, Call of Duty's always been known for this, but we really wanted to get that into the scale of the combat areas and the battles and the things that you're actually playing are epic moments rather than just press X to see epic moment. It's the versatility that comes from all the different weapon options you have and the play styles, so that other co-op players could account for your style
idiocy.
and make the adjustments needed.
And I think a lot of that came from the mobility of the player as well.
Yeah.
Yes.
We as the player, we can slide, we can double jump, we can we have a lot of new abilities.
And there's a lot more verticality in the maps.
More verticality, and from the animation perspective, we had to make sure our AI was faster to react to the player. So when if the player jumps a wall, the AI will be able to traverse as fast as the player. So that's something that we have to take care of as well.
Yeah.
Well, and I think what we're seeing here is a bit of like AI versus AI. So you have like characters that are actually fighting each other at the same time, which is
So I mean, like cinematic moments will happen dynamically in the world, and this is one example of them. So you may see it, you may not, but if the situation presents itself, you might see this sequence happen in the game. So.
And it adds a level of variety in the replay that we've never really had, because if you play through games a lot of the time, you're appreciating the experience again second time, and you're seeing different things. Mm-hmm. But in this, you could actually approach every battle differently and see very, very different events unfolding simply because of the behaviors of the AI.
Yeah, I think also it's key to note that the technology that we had, the hardware we had to work with this time around, really allowed us to expand out the types of AI. Sumit can talk a little bit to kind of, it allowed us to enhance that decision making that we were talking about and that speed of reaction to deal with the player's enhanced mobility.
I think, to back up a little bit, there's like 3 games in one. There's zombies, and then there is single player or campaign, rather, let's call it co-op campaign, and multiplayer. And when we start looking at a system that needs to work for the whole game with such a varied, expectation and type of players, it becomes a challenge. We're like, we want like these big tentacly monster, and the first time somebody said that, I was like, no. We're not doing that.
There are very few games that can claim to have a big tentacly monster and like killer robots and like soldiers. All in the same, all in the same game.
It's firstly like, we don't have to worry about nowadays, especially with PS4 type of console, like we don't have to worry about like, hey, we're going to find memory for this, and so we can embed a lot more into the world which AI can go and interact with. So for me, like, AI becomes that factor that moves and actually like, brings dynamism to the world and reacts to player actions. As long as it's like presenting the challenge, and the fun, which is what we try to do, and which is hopefully what you guys found in the game, is what makes the success, or, for us.
Well, and the underlying point here is like you guys, I'm guessing from the past, like we're kind of handling AI on like a mode by mode level.
Oh yes, yes.
This is unifying it under one system.
Yeah.
Would you say, given the total scope of the game, if you think about campaign, zombies, as well as multiplayer, and then you get into all of the additional layers you've added on top of that, nightmare mode, Dead Ops Arcade, like, this is unquestionably like your biggest game to date. Do you feel like this unification of those systems allowed you to put that much content in the game?
It definitely helped a lot. I think a great example is our robot grunts. You've got them in campaign. They're the enemies that you face right alongside humans. They're kind of at that level. And then when you get into the Shadows of Evil map for zombies, you've got one that's there with you as a companion and that can help you out. And you buy him, he comes in, shoots and kills a whole bunch of zombies for you. And then on the other side, in multiplayer, you've got that same robot now as a kill streak that we can bring in to reward players who are doing well. And that seeding allows us to do a lot of stuff a lot more efficiently than we were in the past. and that enables us to get kind of that amount of content. You know, if you go back to Black Ops 2, there really wasn't a huge variety of enemies you were facing. No. You were facing humans that we put into a large variety of situations. You'd have some vehicles, and you'd have the little quad rotors, and I think it was called the Claw, the four-legged walker. And now we've gone to over 21 different types of enemies that you can encounter in the single-player campaign, a whole bunch more that we've got in Zombies, and the ability to just create new ones a lot faster than we were able to before.
And I think to the point of the nightmares mode, you know, which I think, you know, somebody's idea, right? Like, you know,
that was a funny one because you know, we always strive to put in as much content as we possibly can, but content is hard work. And when the idea of nightmares came up, it was really, could we do an additional campaign? And you were one of the first people that got challenged with that.
Yeah.
And really, the only reason it's possible is because of the developments in the AI system. It was a case of taking a level that existed and, okay, so go and start trying to get these other AI functions, AI types to function in this environment and see what happens. And it wasn't as simple as just spawn in a bunch of zombies and it works, but there was enough of that in the initial iteration to make you realize that actually we could do this. And it was, rather than having designers sit down and script all these behaviors again, we could let the monsters just populate the area and make it work that way.
Yeah, and I think the essential part that we realize is, you know, we were spending a lot of time to craft that experience in the technical terms, you know, to play, like, you know, in a certain way, and that worked really well. We had a Zombies system, which was Zombies AI, and then there was a multiplayer, you know, specific multiplayer systems, and then there's campaign. And when it came to Unified, there was different questions to answer. I think essentially the outcome of that was to do something like this. Let's just drop a robot in multiplayer as a kill streak, you know, and I think a couple of days of work, and then we started seeing it, and, you know, we could iterate really faster. And from there on, just opportunities were endless. Like, oh, let's just have I think there's clones in, like, you know, that you can deploy in multiplayer. Those are AI. And then there's zombies in campaign. That cross-pollination is just a fun thing to do, you know.
Well, and you can kind of see it on display here. I mean, we have, you know, a lot of different types of AI just battling it out on their own, which is pretty staggering.
Yeah, this is actually a map that we put in internally for development and testing. And one of the neat things about it is what you're looking up here is a battle that's unfolding without really any scripting going on. There's nothing telling these guys specifically through the script, I need you to go here and do this. This is all just raw AI behavior that's fighting a battle that looks pretty good.
And it's dynamic too, like reacting, they're like, you know, it's how the battle's unfolding is being.
Yeah, I mean, like you take a look at the robots, we need to make sure that the robots fit within the Call of Duty universe as well. This is the first time that we take that. We have a bipedal robot in this universe.
Vehicles, right?
And vehicles as well, that you can actually take control of using the cyber combat ability.
I mean, it all just seemed appropriate because, you know, we were doing a future game that was ironically very much based about, like, you know, AI technologies and technologies fighting itself and fighting humans. And so, you know, everything kind of just grew out of that idea. And the dark side of technology. Going back to what you're worried about, AI.
Well, and let's take a step back and think about, or talk about how AI, you guys each individually approach AI from a development perspective. Like I was saying in the beginning, you're each from a different discipline. You all have a different perspective on this. Like, how do you approach giving these characters life and you know, making them dynamic and think it? Because ultimately, you do have to think about what their reactions should be. You know, how do you go about, like, designing that?
Well, for me, the starting point I like to go with is, what are we expecting the player to see out of this guy? When the player encounters him, what's the reaction we want him to engender in the player? What is the player gonna see and how they behave, and how do they understand that this is what's going on in his head? Because for an AI to look good, to look intelligent, which usually means we actually want them to make intelligent mistakes. So they do dumb things, but they do it for the right reason. But it's important that the player understand what that reason is as well. Otherwise, it just looks like, oh, he was just stupid, or, oh, he's psychic, he knew where I was. So we start with that basis of what is the player going to see, what do we want the player to understand about him, and then we build the behaviors to support that. Oh, this guy's going to be rushing and getting right up in my face, so he's going to put the pressure on me. So I know we need to set him so that he wants to get close to the player and he's going to sprint up, and everything that the player sees is centered around that, experience that we want the player to have when he encounters that guy.
And where does the world building and like narrative kind of fit into this process in terms of determining these characters, what they're going to do?
Well, like I was saying earlier, a lot of it just comes from the time period we decided to set the game in, and we worked a lot with external advisors and consultants and stuff to discuss where the technology would be going in the future. And one of the things that was very obvious was that we're going to see an increasing role of robotics. And so, the contrast between robots and humans was the fun thing that we wanted to play with, because, people have emotions and robots don't. And so one of the really fun things that I liked about the robots was the way they keep fighting even when they're damaged, which is very, very different to what would happen with a human.
Yeah.
So, that is kind of one of the central themes in the story. Again, this humanity-technology struggle. And so it made sense that everything represented different layers of that fiction as well.
Yeah, I mean, like in terms of animation, we needed to make sure, like you said, that there was a really good contrast between a human character and a robotic character. And because of the large size of our cast for this game, we have the male soldier, we have the female combatant, we have the robots, and then we have and you add some zombies in there, but all of them need to have their own silhouette, and the way that they move need to represent their characters as well. What I like to do is try to tell a story through their emotions. So for me, the silhouette and the posture of the character, as you're playing the game, it's important for me to
that robot is not scared.
Yeah, yeah, and it's like Yannick was saying, that silhouette's really important. So if you look at humans are always sitting a little bit low, they're hunched forward into stuff, they'll go down into crouch real quickly and fast. The robots are standing up straight, they're firing, from what looks like a fairly unnatural position for a human, and that all helps to sell, hey, this is a robot versus a human. He's reacting in a way that I don't expect a flesh and blood person to react, so I know he's different, and I know there's something else going on in his head.
And the robot, if he gets shot, he loses an arm, he loses his leg, he keeps going forward, and he's a non-stop, machine of war, basically. So.
I think, in fact, I remember a funny thing that we had a bug in there where usually if you headshot a human enemy, right, it's like 100% shot, he's going to die, right? And we had a bug there where somebody shot the head of the robot and he was just continuing walking, And then somebody came to us like, oh, the robot is just walking, after the headshot. And we looked at each other, oh, that's kind of cool, robots can do that. Robots don't really have a centralized brain or whatever, it's just, and we just left it like that in the game. And people find it interesting where, robot loses his arm, drops the gun, starts meleeing you, or stuff like that,
Yeah.
Finding the way that they move was really important. Like, how do they walk? How do they keep balance? How do they see their environment? Are they using sonars? Are they using so that's why that made sense.
Right.
Okay, well, you could just keep going forward. Right?
Well, and because of the 4-player campaign, they have to react not only to one point of interest, they need to be able to transition to others, right? So from an animation department, I would imagine that's kind of challenging.
Yeah.
I think, that one thing which probably was the biggest challenge for us to keep the Call of Duty level of fidelity, into the animations over 4 players, and making sure that all the remote players, are going to see the same thing,
Right.
and having multiple animations and being able to make sure that they get the same experience across the network is something that is still a challenge, but at least because of the way the AI is structured and how we network the AI, it helped us to not have to worry about it a lot from the architecture point of view.
Yeah, I mean, you could essentially, the player could, like I said, flank an AI, and if he's shot from the side, We need to make sure that he has a proper animation that supports the co-op experience, because before it was like you mentioned before, a very sort of a corridor
2D
environment.
Yeah.
But now the AI needs to react 360 degrees.
It's interesting because in some ways the roots of all this came from our zombies mode, which, you know, if you look at a traditional Call of Duty level, a campaign level, it's about getting to A to B with all sorts of spectacular things happening along the way. Zombies was never about that. It was about surviving in an environment. So that was some of our big advancements really came there, and it was co-op as well. It was all about making them try and find ways to gang up and surround you and trap you. And that's a very, very fundamental AI behavior, but it kind of set the bar really for where we needed to go. It didn't set a bar, it was the beginning of a bar that we then moved so much over.
That was actually the starting point where people people were like, you know, internally when the studio was discussing, you know, we were like, how come, you know, some designer asked me the other day, it's like, how come zombies works automatically, you know, in co-op and our regular AI doesn't? I'm like, oh, that's a good idea, maybe I should look at that, you know, and was inspiration for us to just create something that just works across the board. And we are not done yet. It's still a lot more to do, you know, but that inspiration is what you are seeing, you know, in the flesh and body, I can say, you know.
Well, and speaking of those cinematic moments, how did you know, with all of this happening where it's such a living, kind of breathing world, you know, how were you able to kind of focus a player's attention on an event with all of this, you know, stuff going on in the same world?
Well, there's different things going on. You know, some of it, the cinematic moment, so to speak, comes from just the scale of the event and the scale of the battle. Obviously, you know, we have IGCs and story moments that are very focused, that happen in specific areas. But when it got to gameplay, we wanted the scale to be the big thing, and you know, all those different opportunities that we're talking about for different play styles. You know, the fact that your player could customize their weapon loadout and their very, very specialist powers that they only get from being a cybernetic soldier, all of those things were going to just add a variety to that already huge scale battle anyway.
Yeah, I think the other big thing that we got, and again, this is part of the advancement in technology, was you go back and look at the first mission of Black Ops 2, and you're out on a plane in Angola, and we've got this big battle raging all around you, where you've got friendly forces and you've got enemy forces, and it's all, you know, obscured in the dust. We did that with only 12 active AI, and that was done through, we've got animated props out in the background that kind of fill out the space, but you can't really interact with them. And then you come to, on our Ramsey Station mission, there's this arena that you push this crashed VTOL down, you pop out into the middle of this huge battle between the Egyptian army, who are your allies, and the Nile River Coalition, who are the bad guys who are coming in to try to take over the territory. And we've gone to almost 4 times that amount of AI that we can have active in the space. So everything you see going on there is an actual AI that you can interact with, and you can shoot, and you can go around and explore. If you go around the right side, you're going to see one set of all these cinematic little events, partially from that, you know, emergent reactive system that we've got, where we saw earlier, where we've got these set pieces that happen when AI come together, and you've got this cool little cinematic moment. So, you know, we've got those big, huge cinematic moments, but we've got a lot more of these micro cinematic moments, for lack of a better term, that the player can just stumble across just because we've got this sheer volume of interaction going on in the world.
Yeah, I think what was important for us, though, is although we do have a lot of content, the number one thing for us was fun. We need to make sure that it was fun. And, you know, like shooting the robots, it needed to be, you know,
satisfying.
So that was a really important aspect for us. And whenever we come up with some new features, it was always fun is the number one thing that we want to achieve. So.
Well, and from my perspective, playing the campaign, I played it, you know, both single player and with other players. One thing that I'm actually was really astonished by was how well it scales, you know, to react from whether you're just one player in the environment or you have like a full team.
Actually, that's an interesting point, because I remember when you know, we were coming up to launch, I saw discussions on some boards where people are like, well, if it's a co-op game, how am I expected to finish it in single player? Not realizing that we had this scaling system depending on the number of players that were in the game. So It's actually fun sometimes playing through it again a second time with a larger number of players, because some people in your group will get a shock when you're facing 4 of those robots instead of the one that you did it on when you played single player. And again, that's only really possible with this robust AI system. If people had to hard script, you know, each campaign level 4 different times for the different numbers of players, it would have been...
Replayability is definitely...
Yeah.
I think one of the challenges was this was the first time when the player was going to actually, there's like movements you guys might have seen where you rip the robot's heart or something like that, you know, like there is like rip the core, right? Yeah, and then there's like these cyber core abilities that a player can directly interact with AI other than shooting. And so it was one of those things where usually you would script those movements in like earlier Black Ops series, right? And in this case, yes, canned movements, yes, what we call it, like, you know. But now it's sort of like player can do it anywhere. So we had to account in a way where how is AI going to react to this? You know, what if he's going to hack some quad tank or something like that, and then going to start fighting without, you know, not shooting? So that was one of the challenges, but it also brought fun to the game, you know.
Well, in terms of your development philosophy, you know, what is the order of events? Does technology kind of influence where you could take the story, or is it, you know, the inverse?
Again, there's different aspects. The technology makes certain things possible. You know, we really couldn't have done this game last gen the way we've done it. It was a great leap forward for us. We've made a lot of big jumps. You know, if you look at Call of Duty 3 to World at War to Black Ops, every time we seem to go for something much bigger than we've done previously. And fortunately this time, you know, with the arrival of the new generation of consoles, we were able to take the PS4 and really start pushing things that we'd just never been able to do before.
Yeah, and I think there's an iterative process there, because part of it is learning the new technology. And once we start to see what we can do, then we can start scaling things appropriately. You know, that big battle that I was talking about before wasn't originally a part of the plan until we started tossing in areas where we had more and more AI, and then, you know, our level leads were going, wow, that's really fun. Can we do more of that? And then we go to Samit, and after he get done yelling and pulling his hair out, he go, well, yeah, I guess we can do more of that. And,
it used to be frustrating when we'd have to try and do things like, you know, a huge beach landing in the Pacific or something, and we really only could afford to have like 6 characters there. So we'd do a lot of smoke and mirrors stuff. But this, again, we keep reiterating the fact that you can explore and move around the whole battlefield and see all these other little unfolding events taking place between the AI is just, AI is very interesting.
Well, it just sounds like you had less no's in response to, like, can we do this, or like, you know.
The no's usually come, but then they're changed to yeses. Like, hey, can we do a Nightmares campaign with zombies? No, we can't. That's ridiculous. Can we? Okay, we'll think about it. And you know, we always pick really hard things to do. We always. Jason, the game director's always talking about this. We tend to get ideas that give us a lot of hard work.
No,
but
I think
then it's satisfying when you actually find a way to do something that you didn't think you could do.
I think it also changed the nature of the no's.
Yeah.
You know, before the no's were, no, we just cannot do that.
Well, you did that.
This time around, a lot more of the no's were, no, we don't want to do that. That's not the effect we want in this area. And so it became more of design constraints than technology constraints. And I think as technology continues to grow, and you know, even with with our current gen of platforms, as we start to learn more what they can do, that transition happens more and more. It's no longer, well, it's just not feasible, to it's probably not a good idea to do it that way.
I think
we've got this better way to do it. Yeah,
I think we set a pretty good groundwork on this project, and I think our leaps are even going to be bigger moving forward. So
yeah, well, that segues nicely into, you know, another big topic, which is, you know, where can AI take us in the future? Where can it take gaming experiences? Is it just simply more of what we're seeing now? Is it like, you know, what is the next big advancement?
I think you're going to see deeper engagement between the AI and the world. You know, we've got the capability to store a lot more information on the AI, store a lot more information in the world on objects. So, you know, what used to have to be a static table, now we can store information on the table, and the AI goes, oh, that's possible cover, so I'm going to do this thing to it. and I'm going to change and interact with the world. And that's just as we get more memory and we get more processor power to run more operations on that information, we can add more to it. You also run the danger of you still want to keep the AI at a basis where the player understands what's going on, kind of understands their decision-making process, because that's what makes them feel real. That's what allows them to just immerse themselves in the game, is they've got this easily understandable set of rules.
It's like I was saying earlier, I think the story of the AI is something that's going to be important. Like what are they going through? How they're reacting, their behavior. That's something that's.
Yeah, I think one of the things that you said it earlier, right? It's we're going to be able to bring more dynamism to the world. Things are going to break, and they're going to change. You're going to break something, and AI is not going to be able to go through. And specifically talking about first-person genre, it's not just about shooting, which is essentially it's going to still be there, but there is going to be more ways to interact with the world, more ways to kind of win, or lose, and the way we internally talk about this is where AIs are going to get more senses. They're going to be aware of possibly like lights. They're going to be aware of shadows. They're going to be aware of safe locations and not safe locations, fire. There is a lot more that is just going to make that world rich, and for you to challenge yourself and feel more feel more successful when you do and outrank them.
What about from a storytelling perspective, Craig? I'm curious about your perspective on.
I mean, it's all about just trying to build the appropriate world for the story you're trying to tell. And in this one, say technology is very much at the heart of it. And this was the first time we'd done a game this far in the future. So this one was very much focused on making those robots and all those weapon types work and everything, and making that part of the story. But I think the more, we saw a lot of it on this game, the more the AI can surprise you. There were times when I'd be playtesting a level and I'd be at a bit that I'm used to doing, and I would put down my controller to make notes, and suddenly someone came in to get me, and the more unpredictable things, not breaking Gary's point about them behaving in a way that they should, but the more it can surprise you and the more sophisticated and unexpected some of those behaviors become, that'll be a fun thing to see.
And I would imagine it's also quite, to your point about scale, kind of making it, not only making it more intelligent, making it bigger, more immersive, more kind of dynamic in that sense.
I think trying to get lifelike behavior. I think that's something that.
So you are trying to create AI.
Well, I don't want to. You got to be careful with that one, but yeah.
But yeah, making it feel more human, right?
Yeah, we want the player, when the AI gets the drop on him, we want the player to go, oh, he outsmarted me, not, oh, they're cheating.
Yep.
That's kind of the key goal. If the
that
player
still happens.
Yeah, if every time the player shot, he goes, oh, I should have done this instead, then we've done a good job with the AI.
Yeah, awesome.
As long as you think we have done a good job, that's that's important.
Awesome. Well, thank you guys so much for being here. Huh?
Time up?
I mean, we're running out of time here, but unfortunately, I feel a little bit smarter than I was before now, having gleaned some wisdom from you guys. I hope you guys enjoyed it as well. So yeah, it's been an exciting couple of, just a couple hours here at PlayStation Experience. During the keynote, we announced first DLC for Black Ops 3 is coming. Call of Duty World League partnering with PlayStation. Really excited about that. But yeah, again, thank you guys so much for informing us all, and thank you to everyone for being here. I know there's a lot of amazing stuff going on at PlayStation Experience this weekend, and taking the time to be here with us and having this discussion has been great. So thank you all for coming.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you very much.